All right, let's start. So, as you people know, we have been talking about computer hardware, and computer hardware can be classified into two areas or two categories. One is internal hardware, and the other is external hardware. Our first point of discussion was internal hardware, in which we have already discussed. Let me mark it up so that you have a fair idea of what's happening. Okay, we have already discussed motherboard, RAM, and ROM. Today I'm going to start our discussion from CPU. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. It's written over here. It is called the Central Processing Unit. And it is actually the microprocessor that is responsible for performing all the processing that has to be carried out on data and instructions inside the computer. That is what the purpose of the central processing unit or the CPU is. Okay, so performs all the processing tasks that actually take place inside a computer, whether it is about processing data, any data that we give to the computer, or instructions that we give to the computer. Okay, if I were to show you the picture of how a central processing unit looks like, let me refer to your book, and I can go all the way to the pictures. Okay, remember the last time around, I was referring to the same pictures. This thing in between that you see is what the CPU is. That squarish chip inside is the central processing unit. And if I try to draw how a central processing unit may look like, I mean, a visual description of it, then I could say that, well, let's put it this way. It has these are the three parts that it is made up of. Well, you have the RAM, CU, and ALU. RAM stands for random access memory. Yes. CU stands for, what does CU stand for? It stands for control unit. And ALU stands for, any idea what ALU stands for? ALU stands for arithmetic and logic unit. That is what ALU stands for. And this whole thing combined together, is called the CPU, the Central Processing Unit. So the Central Processing Unit consists of three main components: the random access memory, the control unit, and the ALU, which is the arithmetic and logic unit. Now here in the CPU, it is the ALU that is the part that does all the processing. The processor or the microprocessor that we talk about is actually the ALU. RAM, we know the purpose of RAM is to store data temporarily while it is being used or processed. Control unit is that component that manages the flow of data from RAM to the processor and from processor back to the RAM. Because whenever some data has to be processed, it first has to be loaded into RAM, and from there it needs to be sent to the processor for processing. Okay, and once the data has been processed by the ALU, it has to be taken back, stored in RAM from where it can be output. That's a very simple way of describing it. Let me show it to you. RAM से data आता है CU में, और CU brings the data from RAM. Okay, it brings the data from RAM and puts it in the ALU, the arithmetic and logic unit for processing. All right, and once the ALU is done processing data that had to be processed, the ALU takes it back from the ALU. The CU takes it back from the ALU and stores it inside RAM, the process data, from where this data will now be output. Are you getting it? Any confusion, anyone? Yeah? Okay, I'll just pause for a bit on this diagram so that you can make it if you're making it. So in nutshell, we know that anything that is processed inside the computer is actually processed by the central processing unit. The inputs go in, they get processed, processed data is produced an output as an output, and then that output is generated through some output device such as a monitor or a printer and whatnot. Yeah. Actually, on the sides of the CPU, what do we have? We have, on the left of it, we have the input devices. And on the right of it, we have the output devices. Data goes in to the CPU, gets processed, and then sent out as processed results or output to an appropriate output device wherever that output needs to be produced. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to go down a bit to show you a few more things. See, there is an entire discussion on the central processing unit later on in the chapter. So if we look at this, if I go by what's written here, it says the central processing unit is a computer component that interprets and executes commands from computer hardware and software. It is usually part of the motherboard. It is usually part of the motherboard. Remember, this is the motherboard. This is the motherboard. Okay, I should draw a line in the opposite direction. Well, this is the motherboard, and the CPU is etched onto it, fixed onto it. Remember from our last discussion where I told you that motherboard is that component, that single hub that has all the other electronic components fixed onto it. And CPU being one, or CPU being the most important of them all. Yeah? Okay, very good. You do know that CPU is also called the brain of the computer, because it is here that all the processing takes place. That is why it is also called the brain of the computer. All right. Okay. The main components of the CPU are control unit, CU, the one that I wrote there, yeah, and arithmetic and logic unit, or ALU. And of course, alongside there is RAM as well. It is often referred to as the microprocessor. So this CPU, the entire CPU with its various components inside, such as the control unit and the arithmetic and logic unit and the temporary memory, is actually known as the microprocessor. Where, as I said, all the processing that goes on inside the computer is done. Clear, everyone? Very good. Excellent. Okay, now going back, we will be moving back and forth a bit. Okay, so there's this nice table given as well in your book that draws a comparison between the use of RAM and ROM, or the purpose of RAM and ROM inside the computer. So it basically highlights all those major points that that we discussed when we were talking about RAM and ROM. So if you go over this table, you will you know all those key features of RAM and ROM will be revisited, and you will be able to recall them. So you must go over this table. All right. Now the next component that I'm going to talk about, internal hardware, is NIC. NIC stands for Network Interface Card. Network Interface Card. Any idea, anyone, what this might be? Have you heard the term before? Who has heard the term? Okay. Uh, Network interface card is that component that gives the ability to a computer to be connected to a network. It is that piece of internal hardware that gives your computer the ability to be connected to another computer, either to another computer or basically to the network. Now, this computer as it is right now, the computer that I'm using, right now is not connected to any network. So I would call this a standalone computer. What would I call it? Standalone. Let me write it down. So a computer which is not connected to any other computer, or for that matter in a network, is called a standalone computer. Or else, when you connect a computer to another computer or computers in the network, then it becomes part of the network. Means what? That now it can communicate with any other computer in the network because it is now connected. All right. So network. If I were to define a network simply, so that I could describe network interface card in a better way. Network means, or a network is formed when two or more computers are connected together with each other so that they can share any data or information, or they can communicate in simple words. Then I would say that the computers are networked. Can anyone in this class give me, rather I should say, tell me, what do you think is the biggest network in the world? Come on, I think you should know that. Sorry? Internet, exactly. और जिसको हम कहते हैं the internet. Why do we call it the internet? Because it is the only one. We use the term the with something or the with something when we actually are trying to say that this is the only one. So usually when we are referring to the internet, we write the internet. Okay, so internet is the largest collection of computers from all over the world connected to each other to form one large big network of computers, where every computer which is part of the internet is able to communicate with any other computer that is also connected to the internet. So it's a network. Now, what is it that we are doing? We are talking about an internal piece of hardware here that gives a computer the ability to be able to connect to the internet. Hence, if there is no NIC or network interface card, which is a hardware component inside your computer, you cannot connect your computer to a network. It will remain a standalone computer. So NIC is that basic piece of hardware that will let your computer connect to the internet. Without it, you cannot connect it to a network. All right? Okay. What does it say here? Allows a device, for example, a printer or, of course, a computer to connect to the network. For example, the internet. Yeah, for example, the internet. Okay. Um, we have uh, a normal network interface card is just simply called an NIC, but we do have a variation to an NIC, and that is, uh, let me write it down here, that is WNIC. Any idea what WNIC might be? No, no, no. Wireless network interface card. Wireless network interface card. Now, what do I mean by this? In order to connect your computer to a network, you have to plug in a wire. You have to plug in a wire which is the network wire. Until unless you plug that wire with your computer and then on the other end of it to a component in the network, your computer cannot be physically connected. Okay, so when I plug in that wire, on one end of the wire, it is connected to the NIC. On the other end of it, it is connected to the NIC of the other device in the network that we want to connect it with. Are you getting what I'm saying? So, this is a wired way of connectivity, or using a physical wire to connect your computer to the network. Can I connect my computer to a network wirelessly? Yes. Well, you see that example every single day in your home. When multiple people in the same household have their devices connected to the same internet and doing their own stuff. Do you have to plug in any wire to do that? No, you don't. This means that your laptops, your smartphones, your televisions, TVs that can be connected to the internet, such as smart TVs, have an NIC in them already, and that is an example of a wireless network interface card that allows a device to be connected to the network or to the internet wirelessly without having the need to connect any wires. Yeah. So modern day laptops, because a laptop is a kind of a computer that is meant to be portable, that is meant to be carried around. Yeah. So if on the move I want to use internet on my laptop, or I want to connect it to any network, my laptop has to have a wireless NIC, so that without having the need to plug in any wire, I can still connect my computer to the network. So these are the two ways that network interface cards can be used in computers or in devices. Either it's a connection through a physical wire, or it is a case of wireless connectivity. If it is a wired connection, then of course it is a normal NIC, and if it is a wireless connection, then you will have to make use of a WNIC or a wireless network interface card. Okay, great. Let me see if we can find the picture of an NIC. Do we have one? No, there's no picture of an NIC, but um, you can say the NIC looks something similar to this. All right. Okay, a network interface card looks something like this. It would be similar to this, all right? Connected onto the motherboard. It has to be connected to the motherboard, for it to be able to communicate with the rest of the computer. All right, let's move on. Now, what's next? Let's talk about a graphics card and a sound card. Graphics card is that piece of internal hardware that gives your computer the ability to be able to display whatever it displays. Whatever you see on your computer screen, whatever you see on your computer screen is the computer is only able to display it or show it because there's a graphics card inside your computer. So as I said, it gives your computer the ability to be able to display output on a screen. That is what the purpose of a graphics card is. So if we go by the description that is given here, it says internal circuit board that allows graphical data to be sent to the visual display unit. Visual display unit is what? Another name for a monitor. Monitor is like any display unit. It could be an LCD, it could be an LED, or some other type of monitor, is what you call a VDU, a visual display unit. So a graphics card is that internal circuit board that gives your computer the ability to be able to generate graphics on the display unit so that you can see what's happening. Yeah. Some computers can have an additional graphics card in them. You must have heard about it. Anybody in this class who is interested in gaming? Does any one of you have a gaming PC? Does your gaming PC have a graphics card? Yes, this is exactly what it is. Now, when I say that some computers have an additional or a dedicated graphics card, well, that would be needed in a situation where the purpose of your computer, or the purpose of, I would say, the application or applications that you're using on your computer has a requirement of producing high quality graphics, such as gaming. If in gaming you're not able to produce high quality graphics, then the overall experience is not that enriching. And even it could even be a case of the action in the game not being displayed properly, or maybe the action might come slow, which would affect the overall experience of playing the game. Because your computer does not have sufficient memory, I would say, or that specific dedicated piece of hardware that would give it the ability to be able to produce hi-fi graphics. So when you add an extra graphics card, particularly with computers that have this kind of a requirement where extensive graphics need to be used, or outputs need to be produced in highly graphical form, then it is better to have an additional graphics card which will give your computer the ability to be able to display all those high quality graphics easily for you to have a good enriching experience related to whatever application that you're using it for, particularly games. So that is why gaming PCs would have those very special types of hi-fi graphics card, without which you will not be able to play a lot of games properly. Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah? You had a question? Mostly the graphic card that include because of the glitches that the game has, or the visuals are active when you slow or any type of glitches. Very good. I think that's a very nice point. That's a very technical point. You see, graphics card otherwise is there in every computer. Now it is only a case of either is it a shared graphics card or is it a dedicated graphics card? Remember, I was using this term particularly, dedicated graphics card or an additional graphics card. Sorry? Particular, yeah. So, as I said, with normal computing, well, a shared graphics card would do, for good quality graphics. But if it is like extensive, high quality, very intricate design work that you're doing on your computer, or else you're watching very, very high definition movies, or particularly action packed games, computer games, would really require an additional graphics card to be there to be able to support such quality of graphics. I hope it is clear. Yeah, very good. Okay, so something which goes kind of hand in hand with graphics card is a sound card. So as a graphics card gives the computer the ability to be able to display stuff, sound card is that component, internal piece of hardware that gives your computer the ability to input, process, and output sound or audio data. Now, I'll give you a live example. You could see that I'm using this microphone in the class. Yeah, and it is right now connected to my smartphone. Yeah. So the sound card inside my smartphone is allowing this sound input to go through the microphone, get processed on the sound card in the phone, okay, and then later on recorded and produced in the form of sound output. It is the same case with the computer. The sound card inside the computer gives it the ability not only to be able to, record or store any sound that is input, but also do the conversion in the right form, okay, which is computer understandable form, and then produce it in the form of sound output through an output device such as speakers. So microphone is an input device through which you input your sound. Speakers are an output device that produce sound output. And in between, there's processing going on. That is related to, converting the sound into a form in which the computer can understand. Are you getting it? Yeah. Does anybody know the form in which data has to be converted, whether it is sound or video or anything else, the form in which it has to be converted for the computer to be able to understand it? Yes. Uh, binary. Binary language or machine language. Ones and zeros. That is the only way in which the computer understands everything. All the rest is for us. Yeah. The form in which we communicate is something that we know. But when it goes inside the computer will not be able to understand even a single dot if it is not converted into its own language, which is the binary language, or it's also called the machine language, the language of ones and zeros. So whether it is text, numbers, pictures, audio, video, animation, you name it, these are all different forms of data. But they are like that for us. For us, a picture is a picture, a video is a video, a text is a text. Inside the computer, it is all ones and zeros. Make sense? Okay, great. All right, the last of the internal hardware devices that we have to discuss is internal storage. All right, now when it comes to internal storage, two devices that we have already spoken about are RAM and ROM. RAM and ROM are storage devices. Is that right or not? Because they store data. RAM stores data temporarily and it is volatile, whereas ROM stores data or instructions permanently and it is non-volatile. Now, these are two examples of memories which are, of course, inside the computer, and they are part of the main circuitry of the computer, which is fixed onto the motherboard. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other type of storage that exists which is internal to a computer other than RAM and ROM? The hard drive. The hard disk, which you normally call, the hard drive, which you normally call hard disk. Everybody knows the term hard disk. Okay? But the actual way of describing a hard disk is you actually call it HDD, which stands for hard disk drive. Does anyone in this class know the difference between a hard disk or a hard disk drive and RAM and ROM? You know what the purpose of RAM and ROM is. How is the purpose of a hard disk drive different from RAM and ROM? And if I'm not wrong, I think I briefly touched upon this thing when I was describing you the purpose of RAM and ROM. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's see what you have to say. Then I'll also answer what you're saying. Very good. Very good. Anyone from here? Yes, as expected. ROM has processed or RAM has processed? RAM. Okay, good, very good. Yeah, so basically, remember in our earlier discussion as well, when I was describing you the purpose of RAM and ROM, I told you that ROM has a very different purpose, stores the startup instructions, okay, permanently. RAM is that internal memory which is temporary, that holds the programs and the data that the user is currently working upon. Now, till you are working upon it, it is lying temporary inside RAM. Now, once I'm done with my work, if I feel that this was the type of work that I would be needing in future, either it is unfinished work which I would like to carry on with in future, okay, or it is something that I feel that I might need to refer to in future, then I will have to save that data permanently somewhere. And that permanent location for storing all sorts of user data inside the computer is the hard disk drive, which you normally call hard disk. Yeah? And going by the answer that you gave, look, the internal hard disk drive is not to be moved around. The purpose of the internal hard disk drive is that it is fixed inside the computer. It is not to be taken out. Yeah. Yes, there is another form of a hard disk which is called the external hard disk. That is what you use to transfer data from one device to the other. So when it comes to transferring of permanent data from one computer to the other, then you can make use of storage, external storage devices such as pen drives and an external hard disk drive. But as long as we are referring to a hard disk drive as an internal piece of hardware that stores data permanently, then we are referring to the internal hard disk drive which is permanently fixed inside the computer, not meant to be carried around or taken out. Yeah, because the computer does need something inside it that allows it to store all the user data files that we create from time to time, such as a Word document, a PowerPoint presentation, maybe an audio song or a video, you name it, as well as all the programs that we use on the computer. All that needs to be stored permanently, and one device that does that, that stores it all permanently, is the hard disk drive. Is this clear? So all computer users, all of us, need to understand the purpose and the role of these hardware devices that we sort of keep on hearing about every now and again, but we are not sure about their purpose. So the good thing about doing a subject like ICT is that the technology that that is hands on with us every single day, if you are able to really understand, its purpose and the various components that it is made up of and what role those components play inside the device, I will be able to understand my device in a much better way if I understand the purpose of those components. Okay, and for that matter, if something goes wrong with my computer and somebody tells me, well, I think that this is what is wrong, points out to a component or something, you'll know what can go wrong with that component and what impact would that have on the working of your computer. It's very simple, yeah. Okay, one little thing that is still left in this discussion on the internal storage is SSD. We have seen what HDD is. There is something called SSD as well. Any idea what SSD stands for? Very good, very good. I hope it's not written here. No, it's not. Okay, okay, that's that's great. Okay, SSD stands for, no, it's written here. Come on, it says solid state drive. Did you see it from here? Okay, so you told it based on your knowledge, right? Okay, okay. Yes, that's true. That's true. So, what is a solid state drive and in what way is it different from a hard disk drive? By the way, the purpose of both is the same. Let's get that very clear. The purpose of an SSD is the same as the purpose of an HDD, which is to store the data and programs permanently inside the computer. Then why would we need, why would we have SSD as well as HDD? Well, the reason is that both these devices are very different from each other in the way they store the data. And what do I mean by that? A hard disk drive stores data on disk platters. A hard disk drive stores data on disk platters, which look like compact disks. Whereas an SSD is that kind of a memory that exists in the form of a microchip. SSD is a microchip type of a memory. It's all electronic. Whereas a hard disk drive is made up of disk structure or disk platters where the data is stored. Now, in order to make it more clear, let me show you the pictures. Pictures, as they say. Sorry? Yes, 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 very much so. So, as they say that the picture says 1,000 words, let's magnify this. A hard disk drive stores data or what are known as disk platters. You see these circular disks? This is where the data is stored. And it is more of an electromechanical component. It is more of an electromechanical component. Means what? The power comes through electricity and it has moving parts in it. You have heard the term mechanical. Yeah? But do we know the meaning of the word mechanical? Mechanical, when we say something is mechanical, in simple words, we are trying to say that it is something that has moving parts. Anything that has moving parts is mechanical. Sorry? Sorry, I'm not getting. Moving on its own, yes. Moving on its own, they are arranged or designed in an arrangement where those parts move and they function in a harmonious way on their own. Yeah. Yes, the force or the energy or the power has to come from somewhere. Now that somewhere could either be a mechanical, energy produced produced mechanically. Sorry, not mechanically, manually. Or else it could be electronically. Yeah, such as, can we say that a bicycle is a mechanical thing? It is. It has moving parts. So when we paddle it, and then there's a gear that has a chain around it, causes the wheels to rotate. So where is the energy or the force coming from? Manually. We are exerting that force to move the bicycle. Yeah. But if opposed to that, if there is something that has again gears and stuff, but the power supply is coming through electricity, then that would be, the source of energy would be electricity. Yeah. So anything that has moving parts is mechanical. So hard disk is an electromechanical component where the power comes through electricity, and then of course it has moving parts. And what do these moving parts do? Well, that's a debate for later, because we do have a chapter on storage devices as well later on in this course. So when we get to that point, we will be discussing the anatomy of a hard disk drive in detail. Right now is not the time to get into the details. Right now we are only looking at it as an example of internal piece of hardware where data is stored. Now, opposed to a hard disk drive, we have SSD, solid state drive. How does solid state drive look like? Well, solid state drives exist in the form of what are known as microchips. And this is how a microchip looks like. All electronic, totally electronic, no moving parts. Does it have any moving parts? No. This rather stores data in electronic components such as transistors. No mechanics, no mechanical movements. So this is what you call a microchip. SSD is made up of microchip. It's microchip memory. Hence, your point that you made a little while ago, where you said that SSDs are faster than hard disk drives. Well, now you know what the reason is. The reason is that SSDs are totally electronic memories. Hard disk drives are electromechanical. Anything that has mechanical movement will be slow in operation compared to something which is all electronic. That is why computers that have SSDs inside them as a source of storing data are faster in their working compared to computers that have hard disk drives. And it is this very feature or a couple of other advantages that SSDs give that they are becoming more and more popular every day to be used as storage devices inside other electronic devices such as smartphones, laptop computers, tablets, and whatnot. Are you getting it? And by the way, SSDs are more expensive compared to HDDs, hard disk drives. Hard disk drives is an older technology. Not that it is outdated, they're still used, they still will be used. Let's see when the time comes when HDDs will get totally replaced by SSDs. I can give you one example. My computer that I'm using here, my laptop, it doesn't have an HDD. Its entire memory is SSD. Okay, so it's a fast machine. Similarly, any other such device that only relies upon SSDs to store data would automatically be fast. So the more the SSD, the more expensive would be the device. Now let me give you a simple example that will interest you. Not that whatever I've just told you might not be of interest, but something that you would be able to relate to in your everyday life. Well, we are all interested in smartphones. Anybody in class who is not interested in a smartphone? I don't think so. Come on, really? Do I really have to believe you in that? Hard to believe that. Anyway, okay, beta. देखो, let's talk about an iPhone. Not that I'm an iPhone ambassador here, but just taking it as an example. Now, iPhones come in different types of memory sizes. Is that right? You know, the minimum I believe is 128 GB. Yeah, minimum is 128 GB, and then it goes to goes above that, such as I think what 256 and 5112 and 1 TB till 1 TB. Now you get a 1 TB memory in your smartphone. So what is this a measure of? This is a measure of the SSD inside your smartphone. This memory that we speak about, okay, my iPhone is 128 GB or 256 or 512 and whatnot, is actually a measure of the amount of SSD that is present inside your phone. And the point that I was making a while ago was what? That SSD is an expensive memory compared to hard disk drive. Of course, you cannot fit in a hard disk drive in a smartphone. Hence, you need to go with a compact microchip based memory. Yeah. So, two iPhones that look exactly identical, have the same software, everything similar. One is more expensive than the other. The sole reason is the amount of SSD inside. So an iPhone that is a 256 GB iPhone will be more expensive compared to 128 GB because all this additional SSD or memory is coming with a cost. So this is one of the reasons why SSDs when it comes to computers, it is only lately that they have started using them, large sized SSDs in terms of capacity. Although SSDs are very compact, the capacity is huge. Yeah. So, but such laptops that have greater SSDs are more expensive than equivalent laptops that have a hard disk drive in them. Are you getting all this now? All this technology around us and how it works and what are the standards? Yes? Very good. So, well, with that, we come to the end of our discussion on internal hardware. We have seen it in detail, all the internal components and their role and their function inside a computer. I hope that it is all clear to all of you. Yeah? Okay, very good, excellent.